Hello, true crime fans. Welcome to Debate the News True Crime Edition. I'm Joseph Lobosco, joined by my fabulous co-host Adrienne Barker. We are recording live on Chatter Social, and tonight we're diving into a case that shocked Hollywood and the nation, the Jussie Smollett saga. Back in 2019, the Empire actor reported a horrifying hate crime attack, only for the story to twist in ways that no one, especially Jussie, expected. Smollett soon went from victim to suspect, facing accusations that he had staged the assault himself. The ensuing legal battle led to a conviction that was later overturned, and it's left everyone debating what really happened and what justice actually means in this case. Before we begin, a quick note. This discussion involves topics of alleged hate crimes, sensitive social issues, and legal proceedings. Listener discretion is advised. Adrienne and I are not law enforcement officers, lawyers, or forensic experts. We research each case thoroughly, but the show is recorded live with minimal editing. Any factual inaccuracies are unintentional. And as always, any person or entity mentioned that has not been convicted of a crime in a court of law is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That includes Jussie Smollett, whose conviction was technically vacated on appeal. The opinions of our guests and audience members are their own and don't necessarily reflect the views of myself, Adrienne, or Debate the News.
And this case truly plays out like a courtroom drama come to life, like on Empire. Okay, I'm going to admit it. Not gonna lie, Joseph, I am a huge fan of Jussie's work on Empire and his music. Jussie, if you're listening, let me give you my phone number. I'll do it afterwards. It's been both heartbreaking and perplexing to follow this story. One moment he was seen as the victim of a heinous hate crime, and next he was at the center of allegations that the whole thing was a hoax. Boy, did it spark a firestorm in the media, and it raised tough questions about truth, bias, and the court of public opinion. We're going to walk you through a detailed timeline of events from that cold January night in Chicago when Jussie reported the attack, through the investigation's twists and turns, the trials, the appeals, and where things stand now, and even the subway bag. After the timeline, we'll pose some big discussion questions about the broader implications of this case. This is Debate the News True Crime live on Chatter Social. Let's get into it.
January 29th, 2019, the alleged attack. Around 2 a.m. on a frigid night in Chicago's Streeterville neighborhood during a polar vortex, Jussie Smollett reports to police that he's been the victim of a violent hate crime. The 36-year-old actor, best known for his role on the TV show Empire, claims two masked men assaulted him as he was walking home from getting food. He says they yelled racist and homophobic slurs, poured a chemical, believed to be bleach, on him, and even looped a rope around his neck. According to Jussie, the attacker shouted, quote, "This is MAGA country," a reference suggesting political motives, before fleeing. News of the alleged attack spread quickly, sparking an outpouring of support for Smollett. Celebrities and politicians speak out publicly, condemning the alleged hate crime. Chicago police vow to find the perpetrators, and the incident leads national headlines, highlighting fears of rising hate-filled violence.
In the days immediately following the report, this would be early February 2019, late January, investigators worked to track down evidence. Chicago police, they review hours of surveillance footage from the area. Surprisingly, they struggled to find video of the attack itself, but they do spot two persons of interest on the camera near the scene that night. By early February, as the investigation intensifies, rumors and doubts start to surface on social media. And some of the details in Jussie's story, like the attackers supposedly recognizing him from Empire and the unlikely idea of two strangers carrying bleach and a rope at 2 a.m. in sub zero temperatures, it raised eyebrows for skeptics. Still, many others rally behind Smollett.
A key break comes on February 13th, 2019, when police identified the two men seen on footage. They turn out to be brothers, Ola and Abel Asendario, who actually know Jussie. One had even worked as an extra on Empire. The brothers are detained at O'Hare International Airport, returning from a sudden trip to Nigeria that began just hours after the alleged assault. 2 days later, on February 15th, in a stunning twist, Chicago police announced that the investigation has shifted and they now suspect Smollett orchestrated the incident himself. The Osundario brothers, after hours of interrogation, reportedly told police that Jussie paid them $3,500 to stage the assault. This revelation turns the case on its head. Public opinion splits dramatically, with some feeling angry and betrayed that the hate crime might have been a hoax, and others urging caution and reminding everyone that Smollett deserves due process.
So, March 2019, Jesse surrenders to authorities and he is arrested. Prosecutors charge him with felony disorderly conduct for filing a false police report. In a press conference, Chicago's police superintendent expresses outrage, accusing Smollett of exploiting hate crime fears for personal gain. And Smollett, maintaining his innocence, is released on bond and insists he has been truthful. The legal case ramps up quickly, and by March, a Cook County grand jury indicts Smollett on 16 felony counts, each count corresponding to a false statement he allegedly made to police. But just as it seems headed for a major trial, there's another shocking turn.
On March 26, 2019, in a highly controversial move, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office drops all charges against Smollett. Under a deal, Jussie forfeits his $10,000 bond and completes a brief community service stint, and in exchange, the case is dismissed. Smollett does not admit guilt. In fact, he continues to insist he was attacked and that the truth will come out. However, the dismissal infuriates Chicago's mayor and police, who still believe the attack was staged. The public is left baffled. How could 16 felony charges be dropped so suddenly? Accusations of favoritism and political influence fly. In response to the uproar, a judge appoints a special prosecutor to review how the case was handled and determine if Smollett should be charged again.
So the backlash over the drop charges leads to a second chapter of the saga. In mid 2019, former U.S. Attorney Dan Webb is appointed as special prosecutor to investigate the entire Smollett case anew. And after months of re examining evidence and convening a grand jury, Webb announces new charges. And on February 11, 2020, Smollett is indicted again, and this time on 6 counts of disorderly conduct related to the alleged false reports. Essentially, the justice system is saying it will not let the case go so easily. And Smollett's legal team condemns this move as a politically motivated re prosecution, arguing he's been unfairly singled out and that he already paid his dues with a previous deal. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hits, causing court delays that push the case now into late 2021. By now, many in the public are firmly in one or two camps: those convinced Smollett faked the attack, and those who believe he's been over prosecuted or even framed.
The case finally goes to trial in November 2021. In a Chicago courtroom, prosecutors lay out their case that the attack was staged. They present text messages and phone records showing communication between Smollett and the Osundario brothers, surveillance video of the brothers purchasing supplies, like a red hat and the rope used as a noose, and the brothers' own testimony detailing how Jussie recruited them and even rehearsed the fake attack beforehand. Smollett takes a stand in his own defense, vehemently denying the allegations. He claims the $3,500 payment was for legitimate personal training and nutrition advice, not an orchestrated hoax, and he suggests the brothers concocted the story to save themselves. After a sensational week-long trial, the jury reached a verdict on December 9, 2021. Jussie Smollett is found guilty on 5 of 6 counts of disorderly conduct, essentially guilty of lying to the police in 5 separate statements. He is acquitted on 1 count. Though the trial provides a legal conclusion, it doesn't end the public argument. If anything, it amplifies it.
Ooh, so let's talk about the sentencing drama. Jussie Smollett on March 10th of 2022 returns to court to be sentenced. Smollett receives 150 days in county jail, along with 30 months of probation, restitution of 120,000 to the city of Chicago to cover the cost of the police investigation, and a $25,000 fine. But the drama doesn't end there. Immediately after the sentence is handed down, Smollett stands up and passionately proclaims his innocence. And in a dramatic moment caught on camera, he raises his voice and defiantly says to the court, I am innocent and I am not suicidal. I am innocent and I'm not suicidal. That's one of my favorite. I just love that scene, or I mean, the reality of it, implying that if anything happens to him in jail, it won't be self harm. He is then let out of the courtroom in handcuffs to begin his jail term. The I am not suicidal outburst makes headlines and underscores the intense emotions surrounding this case. And Smollett spends only 6 nights behind bars, less than a week into his sentence. An appellate court orders his release pending the appeal of his conviction. The legal saga is far from over at this point.
Yeah, Adrian, that court statement was very dramatic, almost like he was acting. 2022 to 2024, appeals and overturned conviction. Smollett's attorneys file appeal, arguing that the second prosecution violated his rights, since he had already made an agreement to resolve the first case, and raising other alleged errors from the trial. After many months, the case reaches Illinois' highest court. In November 2024, the Illinois Supreme Court overturns Jussie Smollett's conviction entirely. The justices ruled that the second set of charges could never have been brought after the initial case was resolved, effectively deciding that Smollett's constitutional protection against double jeopardy was violated. This decision vacates his guilty verdicts and dismisses the case once and for all. It's a major legal victory for Smollett, and he is now free of any criminal conviction in this matter. However, the court's decision is careful to note that it's not weighing in on Smollett's actual guilt or innocence. It's simply enforcing the agreement that was made back in 2019.
I celebrated by having sushi that night. In the court of public opinion, the split over Smollett's story remains as stark as ever. Meanwhile, the city of Chicago continues to pursue a civil lawsuit against Smollett to recover the overtime costs of the police investigation, around 130,000. As of mid 2025, the lawsuit is still winding through the courts. And Smollett, for his part, maintains that he told the truth about being attacked. Since the legal battle, he has kept a relatively low profile, but he hasn't stayed completely out of the spotlight. In 2023 and 2024, he quietly began rebuilding his career. Yay! Directing and even starring in an independent film and hinting at new music projects. Still, many in Hollywood and the public remain hesitant to fully embrace him again, except for me. The Jussie Smollett case had left a lasting mark, fueling debates over race, fame, credibility, and justice that continues to this day. All right. So, when this story first broke, Joseph, and the outpouring of support and outrage followed, oh my God, this happened to him, how awful. Do you think that the media and the public, and maybe yourself, Joseph, reacted too quickly and believing the initial story? Or was it appropriate giving just the information that we had?
So, personally, no, I don't think the media or anyone jumped to conclusion. When someone comes forward and says they're the victim of a hate crime, they should be taken seriously and they should be believed, unless you have credible reasons to not take them seriously. So, no, I think in the initial days after this attack, he recounted it in very specific detail and it was horrifying. I remember where I was when I first heard about it. It was just so horrifying. So, in short, no, I don't think anyone overreacted.
So when this first came out of the news, I thought that first of all, it made sense to me, Joseph, that he had left the rope over his neck so that he could show the police what took place. Let's go to Jonathan, but I definitely want to discuss that part of it. That and the subway bag. Jonathan, take it away.
So I wanted to comment one on whether people have reacted, and being that I actually worked to get the hate crimes bill passed, I think that people reacted appropriately in the situation, and it is a really difficult situation. I actually still don't know how I feel about everything. I didn't feel he should be tried the second time. That I agreed with, but something doesn't add up. Okay, I really think he's guilty, but I don't think they overreacted. I wish he wasn't. I'll say that.
Okay, we're gonna go to Debbie, but then we're gonna come back. Debbie, I've been waiting all day.
Well, I'll just start with saying that I think that initially the media handled it properly, and then they were quick to shame him. I honestly didn't think he was guilty back then, and I still have that feeling. I think that there was a lot of things that were put into play, and I think the fact that he was tried a second time, but then really kinda got off with it, although he had to pay the money, he kinda got off with it. For me, that kinda indicated that they knew they messed up his case and that there were too many people coming forward with evidence, eyewitnesses that saw the people that attacked him running by, that that was their way of basically covering their tracks. So, yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so we're gonna introduce Stephen Martin to you guys so you can hear what he has to say. Take it away, Stephen.
Yeah, so I and my friend Jerome Kitchen were the lead organizers for the Justice for Jesse protest in West Hollywood that was arguing on behalf of his credibility. Jussie Smollett is somebody who is actively involved in a lot of C3 organizations and at the time a huge part of the organizing community that was happening. Other things that make me believe that this was a setup to take down Jesse was, I live in Hollywood. I've seen what lengths people will go to destroy people's careers.
So, Stephen, the group, so what were they saying? What did they all feel together? You and your team.
So the issue of bleach being present felt like something that was racially motivated. The fact that there was a chemical reagent, one that's known for changing the color of things, felt specifically anti-black. I could see why people would say that it's something that people wouldn't be carrying around, and that's why it makes me feel like it was an intentional thing for maybe either a studio head or a recording agency that was trying to stifle his career.
Okay, I want to go back to some of this because I want to dig a little deeper. Mariana, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Adrian. Thank you so much. Wow, this case. I so remember this case so vividly, like it was yesterday. One thing that's very interesting about this case is the two people that were witnesses that they did not bring to testify. These witnesses actually say that they saw different people than the two Nigerians boys that were accused of being hired by Jesse, right? He said it was two Caucasians who did this to him. So it really aligns with Jesse's story. And so I lean more into what Stephen is saying, with this all is set up to ruin his career. Oh, did he really get this? I mean, that's just too much to plan. I mean, he knows that there's cameras on the street. He knew that they were gonna dig deeper because he's a public figure. So why did you plan this on yourself? And why did you want to get beat up by two guys that are so big, by the way? So that's very interesting to me. So I'm on your team, believe it or not, Adrian. I think he's innocent.
Thank you, Mariana. Interesting. We had to go back to all of these points, but right now we've got Lyrical. Take it away, Lyrical.
Hi. So I watched this case so closely because I did not like Empire because it got one of my shows canceled. And I was like, oh, let me watch this. It's very interesting. So I followed it. I have to say my discernment, which I have very strong empathy. I really felt right away, no, I don't believe that story. I always try to look at things from other perspectives, so I watched for a while. And a lot of things didn't make sense. There was never 2 white guys that they seen, but there was these 2 guys. And then it didn't make sense to me about how them guys went to Nigeria, and he did say that this thing that he was supposed to get from them was from Nigeria. So it kind of, in that sense, did make sense that maybe he did give them the money for whatever this thing is that they had to go to. I believe it was drugs or something, I don't know, that they had to go to Nigeria to get. So then at the same time, I have to think, well, maybe they don't want to say that they went and sold him drugs. So they do have to make up a story. So that was very feasible and possible. And I was like, okay, that does make sort of sense. But then you have to go to the other side of the evidence. And I cannot see that he was a big enough figure in the world for in the acting career for them to want to set him up to make him ruin his career. Thank you.
Let me just say that guess these are their own opinions. Jussie, I don't agree with Lyrical. All right, thanks, Lyrical.
Okay, so first of all, they had another man that was attacked in the same manner, and he too identified two white men. Then they had the lady that was walking her dog who claimed she saw these two white men. I know they were wearing masks, so all you could see was their eyes, but they could clearly identify that they were white. Then there was the missing video where the security guard had come out as the men went by, and there's about 10 seconds clipped out of that video, which would have clearly identified these men. Now, we can't forget that Jesse had a relationship with them because they were extras on the show, and the one brother was his trainer, I believe. And my thoughts are that they took this as an opportunity to make money and sell their story. So I still think that Jesse was set up in multiple ways and that he was telling the truth from the beginning.
And just so I can just say, some views are amazing. Love you, Debbie. Not that I'm showing any sides. Okay, Jonathan, take it away.
Every time I go back to his story, it doesn't things don't add up. And just like how people in Hollywood could set him up for this, he had all the means necessary to create this situation as a politically motivated publicity stunt. And that's what it feels like in a lot of ways, like a politically motivated publicity stunt. There's no reason to think that there's people in Hollywood that, I mean, is there? I didn't see anything come out that there's people in Hollywood that were so against him that they wanted to frame him or get him in trouble for this. It just doesn't make sense. Something doesn't add up. And I feel like he did it to get publicity for around this very hot button issue so he could have a place in the dialogue going forward.
Thanks, Jonathan. We respect all views.
I can see how others construct the argument that he did this so that he could get sympathy. But I rarely ever see victims, especially people of color, who actually do get sympathy in racially motivated attacks. Look at how the right still looks at what happened to George Floyd and still blame him in his death. Look at what they said about Sandra Bland. Look at what they said about pick any person in the 2010s that got lynched and how so many people can come up with ways by which that those people were deserved of what happened to them and that the police were just doing their job. So I don't see how anybody could find a way to construct in their own mind that if I do this to myself, it's going to earn me political favors when that is historically inaccurate.
No, Stephen makes a good point, and I think just I'm gonna preface anything I say tonight with, obviously, hate crimes happen, and it's not implausible to me that something like this would happen. Sadly, we know that these things occur. My problem is with his story. And just to go back to what Jonathan Howard was touching on, I can understand the theory that, oh, maybe the studio heads were trying to set him up or something like that. But the reason why I find that hard to believe is because if someone wanted to ruin his career, they could have just gotten him off the show. He was consistently on that show, making a ton of money. There would have been other ways to sabotage him by just going after his main source of income, which would have been Empire. Also, in 2017, he had a major role in Alien Covenant, which is a film with a budget of $100 million. It's a studio intellectual property with a lot of backing and clout and fan base behind it. It went on to earn $250 million at the worldwide box office. If an industry or studios are conspiring to take down someone's career, they're not going to put them in a major motion picture franchise film like that.
Maybe I'm not stating my argument as correct as I could. Maybe it's not his studio head, but a different studio. That his career, his talents, him going over and doing these films instead of their films, making them money, is the crutch of why someone set him up like this. That's my belief. That because his film's gonna go earn $250 million, but he pulled out of this film from a different studio. Those kinds of things linger in Hollywood. And him not being able to be a money-making operation is something that happens all of the time in Hollywood. And not only just Hollywood, but the music industry as well.
No, I think that that makes sense. I think you could also argue that maybe there were some people that didn't want to see a out gay black man, having that kind of success. You can go that angle. So yeah, Steven, I get what you're saying.
I think that's probably more of it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I just want to move on for a second to just ask regarding his mother. So, was Jussie Smollett's mother part of the Black Panthers? Was she a member?
So I believe that was stated in the documentary. Yeah. I don't know if she was a Black Panther, but she was definitely very involved with activism.
You know, in the documentary, normally, Joseph, when I'm watching a documentary, I'm like, oh, you could tell that this is paid for by who did you think? Just the documentary itself, was it that it was Jesse's story and he was able to say it, or do you feel that it was the police department's story?
To me, this played like a PR piece for Jussie Smollett. I would suspect probably because the Osendario brothers are coming out with a book. So if I was Jussie Smollett, I'd want to be involved in a documentary like this on a major platform like Netflix to get ahead of it and put my story out there. So I don't know if he was a producer on it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I didn't like first of all, the woman that said, "If it smells like a duck or looks like a duck, it's a duck," and all I could think of is, "You're a duck lady. You are a duck." Because it was like she just didn't wanna see anything other than what she was going to see. Also, they tried to make a big deal about the Subway bag, but did it say that he was knocked to the ground?
Yeah, it did. It said he was knocked to the ground. What I found strange was that he went out at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a polar vortex, which I'm not a weatherman, but it means it's very, 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 very cold. And in a major city like Chicago, they have DoorDash, they have Uber Eats, they have Postmates. Why would you go out in those frigid temperatures in the middle of the night to go get Subway? He initially said he was going to go to Walgreens and then they were closed, so he went to Subway. That alone is a little weird to me when you look at it within the context of everything else we know.
Do I just have to say, "No, it's not weird." If you know, like, sometimes you get so warm and you just wanna get outside and get that nice cold air. I am a Connecticut girl, so I remember that. So, that did not surprise me, actually. And the whole Subway bag being, like, pristine, I don't think I wouldn't leave my Subway, especially if I was hungry. So, I thought that that was just a weird way for the police to look. Debbie, save me.
Well, also, when it came down to the brothers, the one brother actually had a record, and when they went and raided their place, they had all kinds of illegal guns and stuff, and that is another thing that leads me to believe that they turned around and it was this, a perfect opportunity for them to say, "Don't look at us. This is what we did, and, Jussie hired us to do this." So and yeah, they are coming out with a book because they are sticking to their story, and they're gonna write this book so that people again, I just look at them as opportunists.
And so, Debbie, I agree with you, but I also think that, when Jesse was saying, like, I wouldn't be my mother's son, I really heard that. I think at one point, if he did do it, that he would have just said, you know what? Yes, I made the mistake. He would have moved on. Hollywood would have probably forgotten in a couple of years. You know what I mean? Or he'd go into his music business.
Yes, Adrian, I want to touch on what you just say. I remember when he walked out of the court when he was sentenced and he raises his hand and he said, "I'm innocent, I'm not suicidal." I would say long time ago, if I was guilty, I would have said it. It feels so real to me. It's very easy for me to detect when people are lying, like for real. And it felt really real at that moment. The way that he took his sentence when it was read it was very composed. But then he stood up and said, "I respect this court, but I'm telling you I'm innocent. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm not suicidal because, a lot of people get killed in jail." So he wanted to make sure they knew that he was not going to kill himself just in case something happened to him in there.
I have to say something, 2 sentences, please. Mm. Jeffrey Epstein was alive when Jussie Smollett was first arrested in February of 2019. However, Epstein had died by the time Smollett was actually sent to jail following his conviction. And I'm just thinking, if I ever have to go to jail, I think I may just say the same thing. I am not suicidal. I don't know why, but I actually think that was kind of brilliant for him to kind of lay that out there right away.
I just want to touch on the points that you, Adrian, and Mariana brought up. It's interesting that you found him to be genuine in that courtroom with his statement because I honestly saw the exact opposite. I saw that as performative, manipulative. When he said, "I wouldn't be my mother's son," that to me felt extremely manipulative. None of it, even in this documentary on Netflix, nothing about it reads authentic or genuine to me.
Wow, that's interesting. I do see the opposite. But again, as I said at the beginning, I'm a huge fan, so I could be blinded. Steven.
If you're on the opposite side of me, Adrian, and a few others, if you could assume for just a moment that he was telling the truth and you put yourself in his position, how would you argue on behalf of yourself to make people believe you? I think that's the question that a lot of people skip over. Because, in my opinion, there's not really a way for him to defend himself without looking guilty.
His legal team was gearing up for not one, but two different trials. Why wasn't his legal team scouring that area trying to find these witnesses who are now coming forward in the documentary? That's the first thing. If I'm being framed, I want my legal team to find every single person who was on that street in that area at that time. I want them in court on the stand. I think it's weird that that didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm going to support you on that, Joseph. And the other thing is, I would like for him to show up like a real person that's not hiding anything. It came off like he was hiding things, and he doesn't need to hide anything. If he was innocent, even if he did shit that was bad, that might not have been all that they're saying he did, he needs to just be honest about it. That's how he needs to go up and defend himself, because what he did didn't feel real. It didn't feel like we should care about him. And I know there's people that care, but it didn't give me that feeling. It gave me overacted, fake. Yeah.
Okay, so let me answer the question for you. Jussie's defense team did not call more witnesses primarily because of the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution and the strategic decision to rely on a few key testimonies, including Smollett's own. The defense instead focused on discrediting the Osendero brothers, who were the prosecution's star witnesses. So, what they did was calling more witnesses to support Smollett's version of the event could have exposed further inconsistencies under cross examination. Also, the defense did call a couple of witnesses, including a security guard who testified to seeing a white man near the scene of the attack. However, this testimony was open to interpretation and contradicted the police investigation, which concluded that the attack was staged. And of course, the defense strategy heavily involved attacking the credibility of the Asadero brothers. Dr. Robert Torelli, the emergency room doctor that testified that Smollett's injuries were real enough to warrant further examination. And Brandon Moore, Smollett's music manager, testified he was on the phone with Smollett at the time of the incident. So hopefully that kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah, the other problem I have with this case is if these brothers were guilty of doing this, they were never charged with anything at all.
So why were they not charged for their role in it? Because the charges were never brought against them.
Ooh. Ooh, Joseph?
I do think that's a good point, and I agree with you. I think that these brothers are opportunists. They're writing a book. It's like, wow, they're loving this attention a little bit too much. So I'll give you that. And the guy did have a prior. So I can absolutely see a situation where a police department could put pressure on a witness to tell a narrative that maybe isn't true, that's going to support what they want to put out there. I think that's definitely plausible. And I find that to be honestly the most credible piece of evidence in people who are arguing that he is innocent.
Yes, that was my next thing that I was going to chime in with is the brothers. They would let go like almost right away. Like they didn't do anything. And let's say that it was true that Jesse orchestrated all this, but they were participants. So why are they free? And why are they writing books and creating all these things for themselves now? Remember, they were extras. They were not in front of the cameras as much as Jesse, who was the star of Empire, right? So I feel like they wanted a moment of fame. And obviously they are getting it, right? Because they're free out there in the world doing whatever they want. And they never went to jail for not even a day.
Yeah, is it a book deal or is it a payment for being the cooperating witnesses that chief legal counsels or the people who wanted to get Jesse done? And book deals are very lucrative.
Well, they have surveillance footage of the brothers purchasing supplies that would have coincided with the supplies Jussie had. That rope, there's pictures of them buying that. And the one major thing that doesn't add up to me is he claims they yelled homophobic slurs. How'd they know you were gay, Jussie? You would have to expect me to believe that the perpetrators of this crime were not the brothers. So you expect me to believe that someone figured out what you were doing, memorized your schedule, knew you would be flying in that night, knew you like to roam the streets at 2 a.m. going to get food instead of getting DoorDash like a normal person. They bought the bleach, bought the rope, planned it out, tracked your movements, waited for the perfect opportune time, and then they attacked you and then disappeared into the night. It's just a coincidence that the brothers hopped on a flight to Nigeria a couple hours after this attack occurred, and they have them on video surveillance footage purchasing the very supplies used in the attack. That, for me, is what's too difficult to believe.
Wait, did we know when they actually purchased it? Maybe the police had them purchase it and then, have the video.
It was allegedly a couple days before the attack. They have them on video.
Oh boy, you can't get anything past Joseph. He's the host with the most. Well, we got some more questions. So, Joseph, let's talk about how, what do you think that the police, like that, to me, the whole thing was so crazy. And I thought that the documentary did a good job of really showing how the police don't have it all under control. And it is really disappointing when a police department gets investigated and you start learning about some of the bad cops out there. And believe me, I know, and I love police officers. And I know that not everyone is bad, definitely not doing that because 'cause they're heroes, and we all honor them and really appreciate their sacrifice that they make every day, whether they're on duty or not. I know that they're sacrificing, but come on, there are a few bad cops, we know that, and for some reason, that seems to come out in the documentary, so who wants to address that, Joseph, regarding some of the things that were going on within the police department, and were they handling the case properly?
There were definitely some issues within the police department. There had been a history of some issues. So I think that that naturally is going to take away some credibility from what they're saying. I don't think they handled it completely correctly because in the documentary, it was revealed that they didn't follow up with a lot of these witnesses. And one of the witnesses who claims he saw a white man and not two black men, He claims that the police department showed him a lineup of people to select. There was not one single white person in that lineup. They only showed him black suspects. So to me, that right there is a problem, because if a witness is coming to you corroborating the story of someone who claims to be the victim of a hate crime, you should proceed as if that's possible. And it sounds like they didn't do that. So I think that's a big issue as well.
And that is where the door opened up for my being doubtful, right? Like that was it. That right there, that exactly what you said. So thank you for bringing that up, Joseph. So this is so hard. What about the impact on genuine victims? Like that was when they were starting to talk about that he had made it up. My heart went out to, not that I stopped, trusting Jesse, or, when you're a fan, you're a fan, but I feel bad for everyone that has been a victim of hate crime and what this would make them feel. So, if the attack was indeed staged, what impact do you think that this case has on real victims of hate crimes coming forward? Jonathan?
Yeah, so, uh, as a victim of a hate crime, because I was a victim of a hate crime before the hate crimes bill existed, and having to go through all of that, it makes it very difficult for the actual victims. People don't wanna report things because they don't know if they're gonna be believed. And when you have situations like this, that just magnifies that feeling with people, and it makes it a lot harder for the victims, and it's really sad. And, like I said, I'm a victim, and I don't wanna believe that he made this up, but something in my gut just says he did. And that makes it really hard for real victims to report things, to feel comfortable, to believe that their story is gonna be believed because there's somebody out there that's faking it, and that's not something that it's not something that should be faked.
Thank you, Jonathan, and we're sorry to hear that, but thank you for all you've done to bring it to light and to help develop the hate crime bill. Uh, so, Joseph, one of the questions that we have, and I just want to bring this up because I think this is interesting, is so do these high profile false claims, we know that makes the public more skeptical. We get that. But how can we isolate a hoax from genuine cases? Like, does that mean now that we need more PSAs, more stories being told, so that people can separate it and not say, oh, not to believe anything or whatever that kind of blanket gets put on something like this? Well, do you have any ideas on uh, how we could separate these as isolated hoax? Not saying that Jussie is a hoax or not, but if it was, how can we separate it without discouraging victims speaking up? Because I just can't see how someone who is guilty would actually carry it this far, right? Like a hoax is a hoax, and this has happened before. And as I said, most celebrities know that we're forgiving. We can think about all the crazy things that's happened. I mean, look at Martha Stewart, right? Like so I'm just like, okay, I can't believe that he would just keep it so strong. But I do question the brothers, and what they bought. Stephen, how can we fight for that piece of it? Explain that part of it. The brothers buying the noose and the bleach. Can you explain it or come up with some ideas?
That is the tough part of this case, right? That single issue. But if there's somebody who's interacted with Jesse before and or were part of this, did they buy the bleach for the assailants? So that when they show up on video camera, that it doesn't look like two white guys buying bleach and a rope, but these two bought it and handed it off. We can come up with a million different theories, but the thing I really do want to answer is how do we make victims be more believed? You can't. This country and this world inherently does not like victims. And a gay black man is a threat to a lot of norms in this country. And for him to stand in his truth, which I believe is a very difficult thing, especially when you are the victim of a hate crime. There are
And
people to
that's
this day who still blame Matthew Shepard.
oh my God, you're right about that too. Oh, and so for those of you that feel that he did do this, and then you just heard what Stephen has to say, what if he really is innocent? What if this like what does that feel like to you guys? Or you're just like, nope, no way, nope, wait, he made this up.
So I think that, yeah, if you're the victim of a hate crime, you shouldn't even have to defend yourself. You should be believed. I think that, and by the way, if any evidence comes out that proves definitively that he was the victim of a hate crime, I will eat my words, issue a public apology, and feel like a total asshole. I'm just similar to what Jonathan Howard was saying. In my gut, my intuition, knowing everything I know about this, it's just clear as day to me this person is manipulative and not telling the truth. I think that his legal defense and him in this documentary could have done a much better job of trying to explain some of the inconsistencies. Like, you're claiming that this happened. Can you map out how this unknown suspect would have done this, would have known you were gay, would have known you were landing, would have prepped, what their motive would have been? Explain the Ossidario brothers' connection in a way that is believable. In the documentary, he said he was buying herbal steroids, which he was so embarrassed and ashamed to admit that now, 7 years later, he's revealing that he was buying quote unquote herbal steroids.
No, ugh, ugh, I just like, yeah, I just want to believe because I'm such a fan. All right, I have a question regarding the pro-Trump slogan. So first thought, Stephen, do you know if there was any conversation with Jussie that he was against MAGA, any issues politically, anything like that?
Yeah, so I was at the Resistance March here in Los Angeles. So that was at 27 or 2018, and Jussie Smollett was there. He came up to me because of my sign, and I had a brief, I don't know, 1 2 minute conversation with him. And he was an outspoken activist for Black Lives Matter. And when you do that, you put a target on yourself, especially if you're in Hollywood.
Draw just dropped. Interesting. Ooh. Anyone have anything to add? Do you think that was a big part of this, the pro-Trump slogan? Do you think that this had any political context that influenced the case anyway?
I just wanted to mention, did you guys know the brothers are actually MAGA? They are actually part of the MAGA movement. They do support Trump. Do you guys know that?
Mariana, you're bringing in the Jews. That is
Yeah.
the thing. Thank you for letting us know.
So Jussie's conviction was overturned on appeal due to procedural reasons, a technicality. In your opinion, does this outcome feel like justice was served or not?
Joseph, remind me again, the procedural technicality was his constitutional rights under double jeopardy, correct?
Yeah, so he made a deal originally with prosecutors, and then when they charged him the second time, they couldn't technically do that.
Yeah, then the restitution should fall on the city or Cook County's prosecutors for gross negligence of a double jeopardy claim. I mean, that is a fundamental constitutional right that shields you from executive powers, and Cook County being the executive in this region, this is now their fault to own. And Jesse willing to take the community service as route out of this shows to me that he was trying to make this go away, but then when they wanted to double down, like he had to double up on how he defends himself as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Stephen. I think that if they really felt that they had a case, they should have not made that deal with him initially. And by doing that, I think you're right. They could have recouped that money if they hadn't made the deal, but they chose to do that. So the law is the law, and the Constitution is the Constitution.
And I believe that this is true as well. But Cook County had just been lifted out of a consent decree that had been placed on them by the Obama administration for their bad behavior and how they ran their cases around race issues. Trump had almost unilaterally pulled all consent decrees off of all police departments during that time period, which consent decrees were to make for less sloppy or corrupt police work.
Well, I know that I don't know if he was the lead investigator in the case, but not too long after the case, he was actually let go he was let go from the police department. Yeah, he was a police officer. He was let go for misconduct. And in the documentary, they went through all the stats on the way that cases were handled in this area based on race and everything. So there was a lot to show that there was a lot of police misconduct going on all over, not just in this particular case.
Yeah, Debbie, that is a theme. And that is for someone like me who doesn't believe Jussie Smollett in this case, I have to acknowledge that. There definitely were issues in this police department. Like you said, one of the people who was in the documentary speaking against Jussie Smollett, he himself was fired for lying. So, yeah, there definitely appears to be corruption and dishonesty, which puts their credibility in question too.
What a case. But I guess at the end of the day, it's what you think. Nobody's convinced me otherwise, so I'm staying on the side that he did not personally plan to have it this way or end this way. By the way, we all heard Joseph, August 26th, around 8:10. Joseph said, "If I'm wrong, I'm gonna eat something." So, Joseph, we've got you on tape. Do not cut that out. But I think it's time for us to wrap it up.
Yeah, Adrian, I will not cut that out. Listen, I don't care about being right. I was just about to say, I hope I'm wrong. I don't know which is worse, being right or being wrong in a situation. Either way, the takeaway is that hate crimes absolutely do happen. Things like this do happen. It's horrible, it's disturbing, and yes, victims should be believed unless there's a mountain of evidence to support the fact that maybe they're not telling the truth. Anyway, I digress. That's a wrap for tonight's deep dive into the Jussie Smollett case. This story started with a shocking allegation and ended with even more shocking twists. A true crime drama that blurred the line between victim and offender and left us all with plenty to think about. We appreciate you joining us as we untangled the facts and controversies in this complex case.
Oh, Joseph, I'm digressing too, because you know what? At the end of it all, I don't know what happened at the end of Empire. I was left up in the air. I absolutely love the show. Did he get the contract? What happened to his brother? Where is Cookie? I mean, these questions and more are lingering in my head. So, Jussie Smollett, give me a call. I said I was going to give you my phone number. So, yeah, reach out to me. So, anyways, if you found this discussion informative or thought provoking, are just Joseph and Adrian being crazy, or Joseph being crazy, Adrian being sane, please subscribe to Debate the News True Crime. We are on every podcast platform. We'd love for you to leave us a review. Thank you to those of you that have left really wonderful reviews. We appreciate it, Mariana. Your support helps us continue to bring you these in depth examinations of cases that grip the headlines, spark the crazy debate, as you heard tonight, and it helps even more listeners find our show and join the conversation.
We'll be back next time with another case that needs to be discussed and dissected. Like Adrian said, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Amazon Music. Anywhere you find podcasts, make sure you subscribe.
I just want people to come in and meet the crew, meet the crew. So meet Joseph, meet Mariana, meet Debbie, meet Heather, meet Stephen Martin joining us tonight, meet Rebecca and Ann. Thank you so much. We really appreciate, for those of you in the audience, we really appreciate you're there listening and supporting us. And until next time, stay safe, stay curious. Good night, everyone.